with each other and with those who we engage with and those who we live with is a greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum. You say? Wa alaikum assalam. Which is literally a dua or a supplication. Like I am asking God for there to be peace upon you and upon your family. Right? And within it is a message as well. That as long as you are with me, that you don't have to fear what may come from me. Right? You are experiencing and you are well and you have peace from me. That's what it means. Right? So it's a message of not just peace be upon you, but there is security from me to you as well. And when he said this, spread peace, it doesn't just mean the greeting, but it's a lifestyle and it's a mentality and it's a perspective as well. To become people, he's telling the citizens, he's telling the Muslims, he's telling people, be people who spread peace. Be peacemakers on the earth, right? Don't be people who stir up enmity and division and disunity, but be people who bring people together. And this was something that our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and all the prophets, that he practiced even before he was given prophethood, right? Even before he was a prophet, about 10, 15 years before he's given prophethood, he engages in what's called Hilful Fudul. Hilful Fudul was a treaty that was signed in Mecca amongst some people. They weren't on any organized religion at that time, but these were people who saw some of the oppression, who saw some of the injustice that was happening in that area, in that time, and they said, we're going to agree to stand together against injustice. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, I signed it then before I was a prophet. And he mentions 20 years later in Medina, he said, if I was called to uphold that treaty and to stand by it, I would do so right now. And so it's a mentality, it's a perspective. Be people who spread peace, right? Be people who bring people together, who make people feel welcome and at home and included. So that's the first thing that he said. Be people who spread peace. Number two, he said, وَأَطْعِمُوا الطَّعَامِ. Maybe now you'll understand why every time or every place you've walked into, you've seen food. Because he said, feed food. Literally, the translation is feed food. And the rhetorical device that he's using in the Arabic language is to show urgency. And it's an unqualified, unrestricted statement. Meaning what? Just feed people, right? And that's why we take it as part of our faith to be synonymous with, as much as we can be, to nourish people, right? Food is just an example because it's a basic necessity. It's something that everyone needs to survive. We enjoy it, right? That's why you find all the different types and flavors and, cuisines. I consider myself a part-time, not good chef. You can ask my wife, she doesn't think I'm that good of a chef, right? But the idea behind it is that we become people who are synonymous with nourishing others, right? I really, really believe that almost any type of disagreements, right? Maybe you won't end up on the same page and agree after it, but almost any type of disagreement can be dealt with over food, especially good food, right? I haven't had much West Virginia food, but I'm gonna assume it's okay. Yes? Is it? What are you guys most well known for? Pepperoni rolls. Wow, it's a pretty agreed upon answer. Yeah, no. We have beef pepperoni. If you guys make me a beef pepperoni roll, maybe. But okay, I gotta try some of these next time I come back. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Otherwise, I would have some of you invite me for a West Virginia meal. But next time. But the idea is to be people who nourish and sustain others, right? And it's not restricted to a particular type of person or to a particular background, but to feed people. He says, أَطْعِمُوا الطَّعَامِ. And especially, of course, first and foremost, it applies to those who are in need, right? To those who have that food insecurity, to those who don't know where their next meal is going to be and can't put food on the table for their family. Those are first and foremost, but in general, to be able to bring people together through sustaining and through nourishment. And then he said, peace and blessings be upon him, number 3, he said, وَصِلُوا الْأَرْحَامِ. He said, maintain the ties of kinship. right? And what he's showing here is the importance of family. The idea is that, yes, you can try to save the world, right? You can try to feed people and you can try to spread the peace, but don't forget about your own household first. Don't forget about the people who have the most rights over you. And yes, family is difficult, right? We all have, you can imagine, like, you're thinking, okay, even that person, right, who's in my family, and you know, the crazy uncle who comes over at Thanksgiving, that whole, you know, idea, or maybe you're that person in your family, I don't know, right? But the idea here is that, look, with all of the difficulties that come with families, with all of the frustration, with all maybe the white hairs as a result of the family issues, at the end of the day, generally, no one will care for you like your family. And so the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is saying, make sure that while you're focusing on the outside, you don't forget about your own home, you don't forget about your own family and maintaining those ties of kinship. Because what are our communities? Our communities are individuals and families who make up these communities. So family first. And then he ends the advice, he says, وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٌ. He says, pray at night while people are sleeping. And it's a very subtle and beautiful advice, because he's saying, and you can see kind of things are ramping up in a way, right? But also what you see is maybe this last one is the least fashionable in society, or the least popular, right? Because it's pretty popular to, you know, say salam or to spread peace and to feed, and even, you know, with family, but he's leaving the most important for last. And that is to have a personal connection with God. He kind of epitomizes it or manifests it by saying, pray at night while people are sleeping. And this is something that we have in our faith, and in, of course, many other faiths as well. This idea of having and cultivating a personal one-on-one relationship with God. To be able to speak to God, to be able to know that God speaks to you through Scripture, through the revelation, the Quran, and the Scriptures that we have, and to be able to know that you can have that one-on-one communication and relationship with God without any intermediary, without any partner, without any middleman. And that's something that gives a person the strength, and that gives a person the stability to be able to deal with all of those challenges that they will experience in their life. Right? And so what we say, some of my teachers, they used to say, like, look, to have a relationship with God and to be connected to God, it doesn't mean that your life is now going to just become easy and all of the challenges are going to go away. You say, well, I believe in God, how come my life hasn't become smooth? That's not what happens. But what happens is that you will have access to something that will stabilize you in a way that the turbulent waves of life will never be able to fully sink you. They may be able to shake you, they may be able to go, you know, you'll have those hardships and those difficulties, but you'll always be able to find that comfort and that serenity and that strength with God. And we believe that a connection with God, and this is something that Imam Nasr said as well, that having a connection with God, it manifests in the way that we deal with others. That is an intrinsic part of our faith. To be able to reflect God's beautiful attributes of beauty and mercy in the way that we deal with others. In fact, there's many traditions that mention this idea of reflecting in our relationship with God through the way that we deal with others. For example, our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said, whoever is merciful with the people, God will show mercy to them. Right? Whoever is kind to the people, God will be kind with them. Whoever helps others, God will help them. Whoever is generous with others, God will be generous to them. And so we recognize God's favors and His mercies and the things that He has given us in our lives, and we do our best to extend that to those who are around us, especially those who are closest to us, because we want those blessings and those mercies to extend from within and reach as much as we can. And so this idea of being able to connect with our neighbors, to be able to connect with our friends, and to be able to recognize those commonalities that we share. And there are many. There are many commonalities when you study if you're coming from a Judeo-Christian background, there are many commonalities. And we need, and even those who are, from different faith backgrounds, or maybe even those who don't have a faith background, still the commonalities of just humanity are many. And so when we acknowledge and we recognize those commonalities, we can work together to address those things that affect and impact all of us equally. To be able to work to provide solutions to the issues and the real problems that we face as individuals, as families, in our schools, in our communities. To be able to combat homelessness and social inequity and economic insecurities, right? And bigotry and violence and racism, all of these things. These are things that impact all of us and that commonly as human beings we address together. And then to be able to also be able to recognize our differences, right? We don't just pretend that those differences don't exist, because that's not really diversity. But we're able to recognize those differences, and then we're able to talk through them. And we're able to have open dialogue. And we're able to appreciate those differences and listen and hear and be able to hear a different perspective. And all of you are here, and that shows your own openness and your own compassion and your own willingness to be a part of that community. And that's what I'll end with, right? The word community, it's very interesting because it has within it, I don't know, I'm not a etymologist. I took etymology in high school once, didn't do that well in it, but that's okay, right? But the word community, it has, I always confuse it with entomology. I'm like, are we studying bugs? Are we studying, right? I'd rather have studied bugs. But the word community has within it the word unity, right? And unity, a lot of times, is confused for uniformity, right? Like for us to be unified as a community, we need to be the same. And that's not what unity is, right? But unity is being able to recognize our commonalities, recognize our differences, and still be able to live with each other with respect, to live with each other with that common justice and mercy and kindness, and be able to confront the challenges and celebrate our victories, and be with each other in our times of difficulty, and do so as a community, right? We don't believe as Muslims, and I'm sure many of you share this as well, that anything happens by chance, right? We believe that everything happens by the will and the permission of God. And so that means even us being here together, right? Even me being in West Virginia, where I never expected to be, us living at this time in this place together is something that was ordained and that was decreed by God. And we also believe that God doesn't do anything except that there is a benefit and there is a wisdom in it. And so to be able to acknowledge and recognize, why are we here together? What can we do and what can we accomplish together as a community, to be able to see what are those wisdoms and to be able to extract them, and to be able, hopefully, and I can say this confidently, to make West Virginia, to make Charleston, to make our communities places where the light of that community, where the lights of that mercy and that justice extend in an ever-increasing darker world. We always have that optimism that because of people like you, because of communities like this, that we can bring a little bit more of that light. So that's all that I wanted to share. I thank you again very much for coming, for taking the time out on a Saturday night. I know, is this a big college football town? Yeah? West Virginia is not really good right now, I'm sorry, but I'm a Michigan fan. I was born in Michigan. So you got, oh no, sorry. You guys can jump on the bandwagon since we're in the playoff. It's open and welcome, but thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and thank you for being parts of this beautiful community. So I think we'll bring our moderators back, but I think we're gonna have some opportunity for Q&A. But I'm gonna make sure that the imams come here with me to give me reinforcements in case the questions are a little bit too tough. Do you want to say anything, or no? Okay, so I guess we'll just open up the floor to questions. If we can have our imams here to field the questions as well. And we wanted to give just an opportunity for you to be able to ask your questions, ask whatever it is